Hello and welcome to the DM's Travel Book Club, a guide to Faerûn, where we take our whistle-stop tour around the Forgotten Realms and see the sights, meet the people, and discover hidden treasures.
Ooh.
It's me, Hamilton, here as ever with the wonderful, the fantastic, the fabulous Fiona.
Oh, it is me. Hi. Nice. I always do that sort of thing. Ha ha ha. So sort of fake foy
Yeah, no, I like
reputation
it.
and stuff.
Good. No, it's good. Very, very classic comedy humor.
Classic comedy humor that it only works if it's visual. If you're listening to this on podcast, it makes
No,
no
so yeah,
difference.
it's all about you looking coy, 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, we're back, aren't
We're
we?
back. Yeah. Well, we're
Yeah.
here on our first stop of the tour,
Yes.
which we were very eager to get going on, weren't we, Hamilton?
Oh yes. I mean, you might have heard in our sort of like pre-packing chat is what I call the first one. It was like when we were setting up.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're
I was
looking
getting
at
my goggles and my
We're getting our
wetsuit
goggles, we're
in.
looking at the map. We were checking out where we're going to go, figuring out our route. Our sort of like stopping off points. We were calling up Kuoni. I don't know if that tracks outside of the UK, but like our travel agent. And
Oh, right. I was like, what are you talking about?
Kuoni's like a travel agent's company. It's very fancy.
I never heard of that one.
Okay, yeah.
Clearly, I was not a clientele.
Yeah, there you go. Thompson Holidays, then.
Ah, yes.
there you
Thompson Holidays. Jet2 holidays.
Jet2, yeah. 100%.
I feel like you could do the Jet2 holiday like jingle over as we go to this particular place.
We could at least have like airplane noise transitions, I think, for this possibly.
And right now you can get 50% off for a family of 4 to the Dalelands.
Yeah, exactly. To be honest, you're gonna have to. You can't even like give them away. I think trips to the Dalelands, but there you go, because that's where we're going. We're going to the Dalelands today. This is our first proper stop off on our roundabout tour of the Forgotten Realms. I think you can tell already from our reticence that we have reticence. We may have issues today.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as always we are coming to this. Our primary sort of like way into this is using the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms book that came out very recently in the last year, and we are aware. It's going to be my disclaimer for every single stop. So yeah, we are aware there are obviously other settings for 3.5 and earlier for the Forgotten Realms, but we're like, well, all right, we're brand new to it. Let's go for the lowest hanging fruit and go for that. And if there's anything else that interests us, we can go and find out more about that stuff. And we're aware that Dalelands has a lot of stuff, and it is very well documented throughout the whole of, I think, D&D history. But as Hamilton says, I think our thing is that once you've seen one Dale, they all kind of feel similar.
Yeah.
But that's not to say there aren't some standout bits from our quick tour that we've had a
100%.
look through,
It truly is, as they call it, it's in the area known as the Heartlands of Forgotten Realms. And for people out there, like the overview, I feel of it, is it really sticks to that as a concept of like, this is your real bog standard fantasy starting adventure location. And I mentioned it last week, like I was thinking of the Wheel of Time and the Two Rivers, that sort of area. I think Hobbiton has got way more going on, but possibly areas like Bree and the sort of like those sorts of lands. I forget what the name of that area is off the top of my head. Those sort of like starting locations in your fantasy novel where the inciting incident the call to adventure would come. Do you know what I mean? Before you head off to more wondrous and fantastical and magical lands. Not to say, as you said, there are standout areas in this. One of them particularly the big wood of Cormanthor and Mithranor, the ancient elven city ruin in the heart of that, which is your sort of like, that sort of always happens again in those starting adventures. There's always the mystical wood nearby, or the lost ruin of an ancient town near to these quite palatial, sort of like provincial, probably is more a better word.
Palatial. I was going to say, yeah.
Is what I meant. Provincial areas that our starting story or adventure are, and so the call to adventure is there and it's waiting for you. It's just they've given us quite a lot of the starting adventure locations.
Yeah, and I think just to go back to what you're saying about like this amazing mythical magical forest, it feels like a very big staple in classic fantasy. Something I can sort of relate to this, and obviously I appreciate this. Would have come out a lot later, so maybe it has inspirations from this particular forest, the Cormanthor. Is there's an RPG called Symbaroum, which is created by Free League, and that whole game is just based in this huge forest that is hates everyone that comes into it, and it's all about this corruption and will corrupt people for it. And obviously that's on the dark side of the dark fantasy scale, so to speak. But I feel like, and I'm sure this is something you'll come to too, by the end of this, you can just do all the stuff in this forest in Myth Drandor, and you don't need to go anywhere else, right? You don't need to travel. I think that's the thing, is that you could just spend your whole campaign, and it's just like one of the things it says in this chapter is like, hey, Myth Drandor can be a mega dungeon, which I don't know. Everyone's like, I feel mega dungeons are coming back in fashion, and I don't know, because they could, but I guess the way it is set and the way where it is, it could be very interesting, perhaps. And like this is the start. Around it, all these dales are the starting towns. You're starting off to get your Pokemon, or you're starting off on your Link's adventure.
It's very true. Yeah,
it's interesting, and I guess compared to our next place we're going to, the Icewind Dale, which also has 10 places or like 10 dales, it's drastically different. And I feel like I don't know, I maybe we'll talk about that when we get to there, but like I feel like here I was really struggling to go through like what the differences were between these different dales, other than grouping them slightly. Like every so often there seemed to be a wizard's tower. Every so often there seemed to be like just like it just
a form of illness or corruption or evil that was nearby, or had afflicted it at some time, which would manifest as either a sickness or a corruption, or ghosts or specters, or maybe some goblins or demons or drows. Like it was something that was always there, that is like in the past or nearby, or a huge war happened here, and so, and it kind of that kept happening. And it you're complete. I think you're right. There's sort of like, when you talk about Icewind Dale, I think what those 10 towns have over this, and I think they've tried to sort of scramble their way in, is this Dale's Council, right?
Yes.
So there's sort of like, there's some form of collective government here, and it's based around this, and it's a bit wishy-washy, I must admit, comparative, because also there's also like a little bit of intrigue in the sense of Sembia's kind of come in and tried to attack Cormyr. There's been sort of friendships and foes on both sides of that agreement with those different countries. But the 10 towns has like a real fundamental and the whole of Icewind Dale, something to it, which is border towns, right?
Yes.
This idea of the frontier, the fact that they do need to work together, because if they don't, they will all fail, because it is about collective, even though they're all they all vie for power against each other, and there's sort of, it's more one-upmanship in the sense of like a meat better than the Joneses next door sort of thing. If when push comes to shove, they are a unit that works together as a whole, and they are all collectively fighting against the one antagonist, which is the frozen wastes that are ever trying to like overcome them, and the barbarians that live in that area, and lots of other things. And so whilst this doesn't really hold together as a singular thing, it feels, as you said, even though they're all very similar, they all kind of merge into one, and but weirdly don't also become a whole combined unit, because there's nothing really grabbing them all together, I don't think.
I agree. I think obviously, the big difference really is the environment. So as we said, this is a luscious, beautiful place. They have, as you sort of mentioned, this the Dale's Council. So, and they talk about, they meet, I think it's every 4 years or every year or so, and they'll send representatives, and it's a big old thing. And they talk about different issues and stuff. And like you said, there's like, I feel like what this chapter maybe lacks is like, what are the current threats? Because we know, again, from looking at previous editions of this particular setting is that lots of things happen. Lots of Dales have sort of rose up and sort of become independent, and some of them have failed or been taken over. And a couple of them certainly, I think it's I want to say this is where we're going to get it wrong. Is it Shadowdale? I think is the one that's had the issues with like would-be conquerors and stuff. Or it's either that or Scarsdale.
Scardale.
I know,
and we're going to say Scarsdale because we're from the UK. It's a place called Scarsdale, and this is called Scardale. Just clarifying that is going to happen a lot. I keep doing it myself when I'm talking to myself about it. So
yes, Scardale. And then it's like, well, in my head, maybe what I would do is that if I really wanted to set something here in the Dalelands, is that your adventurers, they all go to this Dale Council, or been asked to go, because there's been a big sort of roundup, because the forest is coming back. It is getting that Cymberum, like it is reacting. People, Dales are going missing, like they're being taken over and encroaching, like the trees are coming back. And why is that happening? Because there's definitely stuff in Cormanthor about like magical stuff and like the different things that are in there, like, and Myth Drandor has this idea of the magic that's gone awry and magical experiments and stuff. And in my head, I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like more encounters about weird tree things? Like nowhere in any of the chapter was I was like, surely there must be like a group of treants or like lots more dryads doing stuff. Like you have like the Tangled Woods, which is like this canopied town, which sounded quite interesting, but it's all very limited. And like again, it reminded me a lot, and I think this is going to come up a lot in our book club, about Minsk and Boo's supplement, and how it was like maybe it focused on like here's one small place, like a town, but it had everything broke down for it, and it was really interesting. Whereas here, obviously, it's very hard to break everything down because there's so much. But you know what? And it reminded me of like when we did our previous travel book clubs, when we were doing the different planes, how each one of them was a little book. I can imagine maybe it's like, okay, let's do each of the Dales a little primer each, but it breaks it down into like, here are the noteworthy sites, but also here is the current leadership, here's the current issues that are going on in each of these Dales. Who's its enemies, who's its foes. Because I feel like I couldn't tell, like if you joined like say like Arendelle, I know is like the most wealthy and militaristic. I was like, okay, then and I think it was like but it's against Tasseldale, which is like its closest neighbor, but Tasseldale is just a group of villagers that make cool swords. Like why? Is it just because it's its pride? Like I'd like to have a bit more like what's its personality, and like the when we talked about factions before, they like this faction but they don't like this faction. And I think that would have helped me maybe do a little bit of web, because a web of relationships. Because I will say, and I think you agree on this, the map is. It's so hard to tell where one begins and one ends in these different vales.
Yeah, there is no borderlines on this, which is really annoying. So you can't even tell where Sembia that borders on the Dalelands. And I was thinking of another great example of this, which was both the Critical Role Explorer's Guide to Wildmount and the Tal'Dorei Expanded. I think it was
Reborn. I think it's called
Reborn. Tal'Dorei Reborn, where Matt Mercer and co. they just took probably like 3 paragraphs. At the beginning it said people that run it, population, key things about it, really cool place. Here's a paragraph of information. Here's a paragraph about something really cool about this place. Here's a paragraph of something interesting that you might want to investigate. Done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, you could do that with 90% of these Dales could be that. And I think it would be so much easier to take in. And then, I think we've, where it could be like Arkandale, Tasseldale, Scardale, all those ones could just be those 3 or 4 paragraphs with a very clear who's running it, who's doing it. Even the Thay book we looked at recently had a very similar sort of process, and that wasn't as long as some of these. I think these kind of go on a bit too depth into areas that don't have enough to give you back. And I think it feels a little bit like, well, we've got 10, we've got to do every single one, whereby I think they could have been much more punchy with really critical information on some of them, and then taken the time to possibly, as you said, like Tasseldale is the one that was also actually taken over and then they retreated from. Sembia retreated from.
That's it. Yeah, he got taken and
was
then liberated. Yeah, that's
liberated,
it,
exactly. And so you could be like, okay, well, let's do, we could talk about that one. Let's focus on this as actually outside of talking about Tasseldale. It could be like the war with Sembia, and they could focus in on what that means and how that interacted with players in it. And they could talk about Scardale and its fake ruler, or potentially fake ruler, and you could possibly separate those out as like mysteries or threads or little mini quests or something like that kind of dip into each of these in a little bit more interest where it's necessary. Because I think it's I don't know. I am agreeing with you, basically.
No. I agree. I'm thinking I think obviously we're taking this chapter out of context because the first chapter had all these different like plot hooks and adventures. I think each of these Dales could have had 3 points of plot hooks to be like, hey, someone's gone missing, or someone's asking for a cure for the shaking plague. You've got to go protect a consignment going through what's it called? Battledale?
Yes.
Which is it's a big battlefield and there's ghosts and so I feel like I wish there's more, and I appreciate we've jumped far ahead and be like, this is the criticisms of it. But let's go back, let's talk about it. So the Dalelands have been described as this breadbasket of the Heartlands, which instantly is a really cool like image. You have these rolling fields, you have this idea of like the forest, and that it's at the center of this thing is this Dales compact between the elves of Cormanthor and folks who were coming to the Heartlands to settle and get away from the wars happening elsewhere. And I thought it was a really interesting thing how, like, obviously they're coming here to settling down, they're maybe chopping down the forest to make space for them, but to make their houses and homes. And the elves obviously don't want that. They don't want you to harm the forest because it's very protective of them, but they decide to make this contract because they're like, this is inevitable. This is going to happen. People are going to come here and we better just head it off at the head, essentially. And I thought that was really cool, actually, because like it's just like almost that wisdom of like, look, this is inevitable. People are going to come here because it's safe. Rather than just turn them away or go into another war with these people, why don't we try and make a better future? And this Dale's Compact, which is sort of enshrined in these standing stones, which again I thought was a really cool little noteworthy site that you could go find, about like how we won't take from this forest, but the forest will always provide. And then you have Minas Dranor, this elven city, which has fallen twice now. First time due to internal strife with magical experiments going haywire about 800 years ago at time of this book being released. And then people bringing it back and opening it up to everyone, not just elves, which is, again, a very cool, like, okay, where do we go from here, development style. And then, just to tie it into the Nethril stuff that we looked at, this is where I'm going to get the name wrong, Shadow? This sort of Nethril city came back from the Shadowfell.
Oh, yes.
And then there's a big fight, and then this city fell. It's where I said it wrong.
Full Thanthar.
Full Thanthar.
Yeah.
So it's just like you're saying it with like a full mouth, isn't it?
Full Thanthar. That's it. Full Thanthar.
Full Thanthar fell. So I can see this incredible image of this huge city starting to fall from the sky and then obliterate essentially Mithranor, right? Completely obliterated it. And so now you have this big elven city in ruins with parts of this other city that was floating, which then destroyed this sort of magical protection called the Mithril, which I wasn't entirely sure. Is it just like a system of magic, or is it like an actual entity?
It was the same magical entities that were in Full Thanthar and all the Netheril cities, which kept them afloat, was the Mithals. So they were those magical concentrations of magical energy, like in a stone, that kept them aloft. So they were the same things.
Okay.
So yeah, I remember. So the Mithal is which it extended the lives of the city's inhabitants, controlled the weather, and had other wondrous uses, ensuring it remained a magical paradise. These were also the elements that they chucked into the flying cities of Netheril that made them stay aloft and increase the magical potential. And that was why
that's really cool.
They were in the whole of the fall of Netheril was because they were charging up these mythals. They were causing so much
That's
more
right.
magical like effects to occur, and that's what
Yes.
kept those Faerûn coming, because these were like big concentrations of magical energy in these mythals.
So almost like then this, this big battle happening, and then the city falls, and then just the smashing of almost like two magnets together has exploded out, and that's why all the magic is sort of
Yeah.
is haywire. Like there's magic dead zones, but also like that's why I was like in my head I was like, is it a creature? Because it talked about like if you were exposed to this sort of like corrupting mithril, like you would change yourself for several months. So again, it's that sort of thing where maybe it feels very much like, I don't know if you've read it, Hamilton, but the Teeth RPG, the idea behind that is that there's a corrupted veil that's been sealed off, and you are sent in to go and find artifacts of great import to the king. But the longer you're in the veil, the more corrupted you get. So you only have, I think it's like 6 months or maybe a year before you're just also like, oh, you're not allowed back, sealed off. So you have a time limit. So maybe that's a plot hook, like, hey, you've been sent to document or explore parts of Mithranor, but you can only be in it for certain amounts of time, like before, like, you will not be allowed back out.
No, I think that's interesting. It's kind of a good common trope actually, which I think hasn't been put on. I also think my first thought with it was origin stories for sorcerers. That was my thinking. Like, I feel like if you've got a player in your campaign who's thinking of starting off as any sort of magical, to be honest, if you want to play it, even possibly like homebrewing a either a paladin or a warlock, potentially using this as your, if you didn't want to choose a god or you didn't want to choose a patron, you could have it as like some form of the mythal is calling you, which could like give you
fun
purpose for either good or bad, in the sense of like, as a paladin, maybe like you were embodied with the energy of the mythal, which is actually Mystara or something hidden at the back of it, maybe, but it's coming through it, which is giving you your powers. But your oath that you make, or your pact, is to restore, either maybe to restore it or to unbind the magic further, maybe even if you wanted to take it in a sort of darker twist. It's kind of how I saw it. Or just even sorcerers, I think is great. Like, like just because you can have the sorcerers that are sort of innate, I forgot what it's called, not Clockwork Soul, so that's the what's the one when you're just inherently magical because of your lineage, basically.
Draconic is the one I'm thinking.
I think it is.
There's more stuff than that, but
I can't think of the top of my head, it's gone. But that
Draconic
idea,
bloodline, I think I want to say.
That's it, Draconic bloodline. You could possibly adapt that to utilize the sort of like, I've just, descendant of this like magical energies has come through me, or just this magical, or it could be Clockwork Soul in the sense, if you wanted to, and link it to something.
I think it'd be cool, because then you could, if you are having more relying on more magic that, not necessarily the wild magic, but like it's more nature magic, but you're not a druid. I think that could be quite interesting, because I don't know if there's any wizard or sorcerer subclass that is particularly attached to nature. It's mostly druids, right? Which is, it makes sense too. But I like the idea that like you're pulling from this particular place, and it's always with you in some way, and you show it whether like, I don't know.
Maybe when you could do milestone leveling up, which is sort of like you fixing the myth out. Do you know what I mean? Like you can make that a thing, or you're doing it by siphoning magic or something like that. You could do that with your sorcerer points. It's like, I don't know, you could play off it. I think.
I think so too. And on top of that, so you have obviously this huge magical forest with this abandoned elven city in here. Both abandoned because obviously another city crashed into it, but also because the elves have left for I want to say Evermist or other places.
Yes.
We also have this idea of Moanda. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Yes.
This idea of god and corruption that was apparently in the forest, and then some bloody hero known as Alias woke them up.
Yes.
And then you had this whole thing of like path of destruction carved through this forest, and eventually they were destroyed. Moanda. But now their presence is still around, and also because there's the Second Sundering, which we won't have time to go through here on this particular book club, but like they are still back. And so I like that idea. As you're going through the forest, it's like, what has made like this road or this, and it's just carved through as if like this horrible force has just gone through it, but it's like the repairing of stuff afterwards. So you have like the roads and woods that have which have been torn through. They're filled with like strange fungi, loathsome
Mm,
oozes, plant monsters, these sort of spores of Moanda.
mm.
It's just really, I find that really interesting. That it's that sort of thing where you're like, hang on, what is this? Where are we? Like I found something on the ground. You look up and actually you're in a huge footprint. It's that kind of vibe I'm just thinking.
Yeah,
Where you suddenly realize that, oh, we're in like, I don't know, a huge mycelium network,
yeah.
and looking around, and it's just everything about you like, must have come through here.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really cool idea. Those sorts of
Mm,
things. And see, this kind of beginning bit of this chapter where it talks
mm,
about Cormanthor and it just has like where I'm just going to go on the way they've sort of like
yeah.
set it up in terms of the graphical text. There's clearly like subheading 1 is Cormanthor, and then subheading set 2 is like Lake Sember, Moanda's Road, Semberholm, the Standing Stone we mentioned,
Yeah.
Tangle Trees, which
Yeah.
is that network of interlocking bridges that you mentioned as well, the
Yeah.
little
Which
city of
I love stuff like that. I do
yeah.
think it's very Airbnb.
Yes,
Go
I've
to
been.
go to a place.
There are definitely like Euro camps have these kind of places as well now. I've seen loads of them. Yeah, and I feel like this part of the chapters, it's when they start becoming the sort of like subheading 3, where it's the italicized text, that it
Mm,
starts to get a little bit too in depth. And I think
mm,
that's when it falls apart in this, because some of those great bits are those beginning bits. Like those
yeah.
are really interesting parts and stories. The Standing Stone really interesting. Semberholm like is a city high above the waters of Lake Sember. Is this city
Mm,
which has a cathedral-like retreat for those elves who remain in Cormanthor. Limestone caves beneath the city provide access to the lake and serve as an emergency redoubt, which is quite cool. And
yeah.
Silville Miritar,
Very
who
good.
leads the restoration, is like a really cool, who's also a resurrected hero. I mean, these are all like really cool little stories that you're like, I like this.
Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Little, very thematic little
Well,
places.
even the lake itself, I thought was
Mm,
interesting because it talked about like it's beautiful freshwater lake. It's sacred to the elves of the forest. Legends hold that the elves of Mithranor, I'll get there
yeah,
eventually, bury their dead in the cold waters, but no outsider has ever verified these stories, and the elves say nothing. I just think that's, again, we
yeah,
don't talk about like death rites and passages and
yeah.
stuff like that, and also elves live for a very long time. But I just had that a moment of like going like,
Mm,
yeah, what you can see like folks standing on a shoreline, like pushing out a boat
yeah,
with somebody wrapped up in it, and then I don't know, you not set it on fire. I know that's very Viking like, but maybe there's
yeah.
holes in the thing, and so the boat slowly descends into the water or
No,
something
that's a
like that.
cool one.
I just thought it was really
More of
interesting.
that, please.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting, and obviously in Mr. Reynolds there is like a burial site and a war memorial as well,
Mm,
which I thought was really interesting. But I just was like, that's such a cool little moment that you could see. I mean, obviously you could do like, I don't know, fishing and all sorts, but I was just like, oh yeah, that's a nice little. I can visualize that little. You know what? You know
yeah,
what I think is missing. I think you talked to this about off recording, the idea of atmosphere, but
yeah,
also having little moments that you could sprinkle in. One thing I think came up, and I can't remember which game it is, where it's just like, here are some moments that you can sprinkle into your story, like
yeah.
the sounds of the street market setting up for the day, or the smell of coffee being brewed as well. Here it could be like the sounds of lapping waves as the burial boat is pushed out by the party,
It
like something like
is
that.
all of that. It is
Mm,
atmosphere, and I mentioned it, yeah, because the message I sent to you is I was listening to I was listening to the Manor Lords soundtrack, which is really good. If you want some really good fantasy background music,
yeah.
it's so good. So like got little like Celtic tunes and like really beautiful music. I love it. So I was listening to that, and I was just like, oh, this music is really good, and this story is just not hitting.
Yeah.
A lot is coming from the music that's not being picked up in this, because as you said, like, and I think the thing that like I used in my book was
Yeah.
encounter tables and mystery tables, right?
Yeah.
Because and then like when I talk about places, I talk about the people of the place. I try and give the sound and the smell or the thing, because I picked up on those when we did like it mentioned like people always
Mm,
humming to each other and singing songs. That also was used in Netheril as well, but also the fact that they talked about all the sort of tastes and flavors of the food of Thay as well, for example,
yeah.
when we looked at that. And it's those kind of things that build atmosphere, like places, history and stuff. History textbooks, right, at the end of the day, are not great. The best history
No.
teachers are the ones that bring it to life. And that
Mm.
feels like what's kind of sometimes missing from this. As you said, like if it was like the fact that it just says they bury the dead in the coals of the lake Sember, but no outsider is verified. What would be so lovely is if it said something more like, if you go down on a misty morning, just as the sun is just like rising in the sky and the blue light of the dawn, like the blue and green yellow light of the dawn is coming across from above, or like
Yeah.
over the tops of the trees, you will hear the choral chants murmuring from the woodlands as white clad figures with veils over their faces walk to the
Yeah.
waters, carrying a silk laden boat down to the riverfront, placing it slowly on there as the choral sounds erupt into a louder chant that fill the whole of this copse land. You alone sit there in silence, wondering and questioning what happens, before suddenly those beings disappear back into the gloom of the forest, and as a boat sinks slowly and effortlessly down into the waters, you're like, go, now I'm involved, I'm here now, right? There's the thing. Rather than, oh, who knows? I don't know. They don't
Maybe.
ask the elves. They won't tell you anything.
They won't tell you anything. Yeah, you need a little bit more flavor to it. I agree completely. Well, let's. I know we're dancing around it a little bit. Let's go look at these 11 dales that are available, right? So, there are 11 dales. Many have risen and fallen. In order, as listed here, we've got Archendale, we have Battledale, we have Daggerdale, Deepening Dale, Featherdale, Harrowdale, Highdale, Mistledale, Scardale, Shadowdale, and Tasseldale. There are other ones, and the reason I'm mentioning this, because I found it very useful, because obviously you're like, God, what is going on? I'd actually recommend looking at the Forgotten Realms fandom website, because it actually splits them a little bit into like trading dales, transitional dales, rustic dales, and then fallen dales. But I feel like that's a little bit more helpful, rather than, because as we were sort of mentioning, the map itself, because there's no boundary, there's no way of like trying to work out like who's next to who or anything like that. And like we said at the beginning, like who's a rival, who's a buddy, all that sort of thing. If you're like, this is what this dale is known for best, right? Maybe we can have stories around military backgrounds or trading or craftsmanship as well. I think that is sort of my thing going into it, is that it does feel, you get to a point you're like, they're all the same. But I think starting with Archendale as a way, I think as we're going to go through, we're not going to go into too great a depth for all of them. But one thing I thought was really interesting about Archendale, so this first one, which is all very, very wealthy, it's like the most prosperous one, and also very military minded. I thought what was interesting was this idea of the swords, these sort of free-masked individuals who lead this place. And again, there's not much information on it, and I understand why there isn't, but I like the idea because it feels very much like the masked lords of Waterdeep, the idea of like this mystery and intrigue, and it's like, well, who's controlling this? And there was like a coup where the last swords were like sort of taken and slain, and then a couple of years later, so 3 other people turned up and they're like, yep, we're now looking after this dale. And I was like, ooh, I want to find out more. What are the masks like? Why are they called swords necessarily? Is this like, do they have some sword insignia? Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's a cool idea. As you said, I would have liked more on them a little bit, because I think as the GM who's probably reading this, you should be gifted a little bit more of that, I feel like. And I think, but yeah, it's a cool idea, this idea of Sword Point, this garrison which is on the border. Well, it's not actually, because Arkin Bridge, which is the main city, is actually on the border, and Sword Point is this garrison which sits above, which is weirdly behind the city, which I always find very strange. I know that it's about ballista and stuff like that it mentions, but I'm also like, why is your fort the wrong side of your invaders? But it's okay. I'm sure it makes sense, and I'm just not I'm not a military person, so maybe I'm getting it wrong. But the idea of this fortified garrison at the top of this mountainside, quite thematic, and this idea that these high lords of the fight, of the war front, of the sort of like are standing there with this, like, you can imagine this thing. There's a bit of artwork in the book here which looks very traditional knightly figures, and sort of very French medieval sort of picturesque sort of castle architecture in the background. You do get it, and the idea of the wolf wall of White Ford, like they're all very medieval coded like ideas here, And so yeah, I agree. It's interesting. It doesn't. I mean, like, I was confused as to why it was the most richest, other than it said it was the richest. Because
Yes, sorry.
yeah,
That made me laugh.
sorry, because it says the Dale's wealthy and well-armed families this were the people that kicked it out. It says it is the wealthiest, because it's got merchants, and I guess because it's like near Sembian, it's like a trade route.
It is a
But
trade one, yeah, but
yeah, but I don't know. I was so steep in Dale. Do you know what I mean? I was just kind of, I thought, like, because it's got the mountains, I thought it was going to start talking about like, oh, this is where there's a bounty. I know it talks about the goddess of bounty is sort of like one of the temples, but it doesn't say
Yes.
like there's mines in those mountains. There's gold in those
There's
mountains.
gold in those hills, yes.
There's gold in those hills. There are. You know, that's what I
Yeah.
was expecting a little bit.
Yeah, I guess because compared to other places like Featherdale, which is like there's lots of farming land, but also it's on the river, so they have like back and forth like ferry crossings and stuff. So yeah, I feel like the I guess it's to do with the military stuff, but also I think I don't know. I feel that's what it is. It's like we're military. Maybe it's a bit more aggressive, so it's like willing to like if you don't do it, you better give us money, or would they give some protection to the other places? I feel like again, it's like it's cool to have the free swords as these sort of masked, anonymous leaders. It would have been nice to have maybe one or two like hey, here is the leader of Archenbridge, or like the mayor or the sheriff or something like that. Someone that you would come into contact as players would. For me, I thought were interesting, particularly about this the Archwood, which is like this forest where it's been left untouched, but there are these rotten vegetation and death, because when they were trying to harvest trees, it just happened to be like that. So it's like kind of like, ooh, this is not great. Something else is happening here. And then the mountain behind it is where Mount Fallag Braw has Pegasi on it. And I like the idea of like, we're going to go capture a Pegasi and try and train it, and then there's something else that happens there. So I was like, those two little bits are like, here's two things are different about this place. That's not like military. Like it gives it a bit more character. But again, it's just fleeting paragraphs here.
And I think it's also because they get lost in these paragraphs. It would be nice if we did like we said at the beginning, where it was like, these are the places, and then these are the mysteries, or these are the things to be interested in, and put those in little paragraphs, so you kind of pick them out much easier, because you have to read everything. And if you're a GM and you're trying to like just kind of
find something interesting,
you've got to then, it'd be so much nicer if it's like, oh, that's interesting, now I'm going to go read more about it, because you want to capture people in, because otherwise it just becomes very difficult for people to get involved in it, I think.
To get invested, right? Like Battledale, I think is interesting, because it's like these places, they're peace-loving farmers, no particular martial skill, but their homes have been like this. It's in the middle, slap bang in the middle of a strategic route, essentially, that invaders will take. And so there's pitched battles that take place. So you're surrounded by an old battlefield constantly. The sort of moment, the cinematic moment that stood out to me, similar to how Late Sember did, was that it says here, stone tables sacred to Chansey line the paths and trails. Locals leave food on these tables for weary and hungry travelers. So I just like that idea. There's a stone little altar, and it's just got like packs of food on, or like water skins.
Like those things you get in like trek places where they have little campers, little boxes with like emergency rations, or if you need, or like first aid kits and stuff in on trails, which is kind of like quite nice. Again, it's that sort of thing where I was like, this is quite a nice little moment that I think not a lot of high fantasy necessarily has in, or people are like, oh, what is very this human. It feels very human. It just feels like in a place which could feel very isolating. This forest is big, and granted, you might hear like animals or birds, but you might not see another person necessarily. I mean, obviously, I know this is a big route, so maybe you'll hear like armies come up it. But I was just like, wow, it's just there's a bit of tranquility. And here it talks about like Ankar. I'd say Ainkar.
Ainkar, the Mantle King, who rose to power and began to try and unite the Dalelands, which I think is always interesting when that happens, but then got slain by a Dracolich.
Where did that come from, though? Right? Sorry, I was like, it's just like there's no like, but who brought the Dracolich? Like, what? Why a Dracolich? Like, that's a really big ass thing to pull out of the,
Mm.
because that then makes me think of like, well, we might talk about them when you come to the cult of the dragon, which is a really key
Yeah.
part of the Forgotten Realms. And I want to say Severus Snape, but it's like that. His name is like Severus, I think his name is the guy who is the leader of the cult of the dragon. I think
Oh,
it's
right. Yes, I know who you mean.
Severus.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Avernus, and the whole point of the cult of the dragons when he took over misinterpreted the text, which says all dead, like all the dead dragons will rule the world, and he read it like there's a full stop in there, but they were reading the James Joyce version of it, so it was like all the
All
dead
the dead
dragons will rule the world, and they couldn't figure out where the
Fantastic.
full stop went, and
That's
so that's
great.
why he made undead Dracolets, because it was a way to make it happen. I think it was all the undead. It's like full stop, but
I like
couldn't see the
that.
full stop.
That's quite
It's
fun.
it's a really good pun. We should look at the Cult of Dragon. They're very interesting.
Yeah,
But
I keep trying to start that one, and then I get stuck halfway. But yeah, maybe we should look at that after we've done this.
But yeah, that's what I'm like. But Dracoliches, that's the only reason why you got them. So why a Dracolich? But no, nothing like that. And then that's the same again. Like it goes a silver scale dragonborn led a group of families back to the ruined town, where they took the protector battle and began the town's reconstruction, which is kind of really cool. And then you're like, so what happened to it? I didn't see any. It was like, then they've got it's in December, which is in the middle of the forest.
Yes.
And it says then it's just again was abandoned. Then it's got sacked, burned to the ground. Now the Dragonborn's brought it back, and it just says that's it. You get it twice in the same bit. There's no more about what the place is like.
Yeah.
Do you know, it just says that
it's always a settlement with a couple of houses, and they're like,
it used to have these undead in it, but they've all been cleared out now. And then you're like, okay, but there was no. It was a really good example of like there was a little bit of. It sounded more adventurous and interesting when it wasn't settled.
Yeah.
when it could have been I thought that's why I wrote it down as a note. I'm trying to remember why. It was because what I thought was interesting was it's like a mini Myth Draenor. It was an opportunity for a little introductory version of what occurs, playing off the idea of what the sort of concept for Battledale is, which is this realm where a battle has occurred. There's a lot of undead about because there's wandering undead and restlessness. So you could have had Esembra in the forest as a starting point for like your travel through Cormanthor and the wood itself, and you come across this place first, shambling undead beings, a really cool little town. There's maybe some people still settling in there trying to figure out what's going on, and that could have been a nice little interesting point. But then it kind of takes it away from you, but then doesn't give you enough in itself, because they've got the ghost holds as well, which is another version of it, like the abandoned manors and keeps, which were all the former homes of settlers of wealthy Sembians who got caught up by the Zentarum and a rampaging owlbear. And you're like, now you're like, really kind of like a cool name, and then like, but not enough. Like,
there's not enough to it.
Not enough to it.
Again. Just to go back, I feel like I don't know if you've read them at the end, but they had like 3 or 4 like starting adventure for the whole of the Dales, and there's one called Restoring Freedale, which is like bringing peace and prosperity to the newest Dale. But this was an idea of like, you've been asked to go to the settlement and you basically make a bastion there. I'd give it Esembra. Make it Esembra instead.
Yes.
Like because that ties it in directly with, because I feel like, because there's nothing on Freedale here at all. It's just like, oh, it's a new place, so it's like customizable Dale. But I feel like if you tie it into Esembra, because then you've got the Battle Dale, because you're constantly going to have like the threat of war in here, and maybe you become then, okay, we're part of the Esembra council, we'll go to the Dale meet, we'll go to the council, sorry, and we we'll meet all the other Dales. And I just if that's the way you want to go, if you want to do that political, like we get higher up, then that's what will happen.
And you've also got the Red Wizard down the road in Haptooth Hill, where but it is another one of these things where it's just like, here's another thing where it's like a tower built by a Red Wizard, the catacombs ascend from the tower into the hill. Then they left, but no, another Red Wizard has come back and returned there and is trying to figure out stuff. And I think adventurers seeking to explore the hill can find supplies and services they need in the nearby village of Hap. But you're like, I would love so much more on like again, atmosphere atop the darkened like hill that crests above the even to you tall trees of the Cormanthor, you can see this like tower peeking above the canopy where arcane lightning bolts in the middle of the night strike over the top of it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and people say a red wizard once lived there. It's been dormant for years, but now has alighted once again. Do you, adventurer, seek to figure out what's going? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
that's what I want. Do you know what I mean? More of that.
100%.
And like, and they say that red wizard crafted there something like a magical weapon or an arcane something or other, or something to corrupt the Mythal of Mythranor, or bring Mythranor to Thay, or something like that. You know, I don't know. Those kind of things would have felt like, I felt like Battledale had a lot going for it in its like, in what it's made up of, and didn't deliver enough on it. But I think if I was someone, I think choosing somewhere interesting to start which has threads to play off, I think it's a really good one, personally. But
Daggerdale, this next one, this is, I think, one that I vaguely recognize. We've talked about this before from like A Curse of Strahd and stuff like that, but essentially it's famous for its hospitality, and formerly called Merrydale, which I thought was really fun. And this is where, again, if you wanted to bring in these factions of like the Zentarum, for example, this is where you do it. They had like a big rebellion recently where they managed to claim back and even neutralize the threat of the Zentarum. But you're having to, it's basically just another community of farmers that is trying to contest and struggle against all these monstrosities, such as lichens and vampires and stuff. So again, if you wanted to start off before going into a full-on horror campaign, maybe you'd go here as well. I think, again, like, obviously in the Dales you have a whole variety of different lineages here. Obviously this is a particular dwarven lineage because there's like the mines and the mountains behind. I think is it Hiddendale or Highdale? I can't remember which one it is. There's a hidden vale in some sort of dale. That's for gnomes, and orcs and stuff like that. But again, with all these things, like, it doesn't
Hidden Vale and
matter.
Highdale.
There you go, Hiddendale and Highdale. So
of course, in Highdale.
could not find that at all. But I feel like it's interesting because I feel like here in Daggerdale, you could make it a little bit more like, it is a bit darker, it's a bit grimmer here, and like, because at the beginning it talked about this idea of like what's the character of someone who lives in the Dalelands, and they're like, oh, they're suspicious of outsiders. You ramp this up to 11 here, right? It's who are you? Why have you come to this quite remote place? Are you here to help? Are you here from one of the other Dales? I think like it's that sort of like, I think, like what we did with I know I've said this before, the different places, like what kind of people lived here? Are they not just beyond their lineages? It's like people who are hardy, they're here for the mines, or they're here because their clan has always lived here. We've got Dagger Falls, we've got Dagger Hills as well. So it's that sort of thing, like, we've managed to keep out the Zentarum for now. But like anyone that comes here, people are still thinking about like the recent combat and the recent conflict, and so that's on everyone's mind. So everyone's everyone's on alert. You know what I mean? So I want to bring that into the atmosphere as we're talking about. Like you come here and people are like, no one comes to talk to you willingly. Unless you are vouched for by someone maybe on the council here. That's what I was thinking for this.
I'd even think the other thing was because it's mentioned like had infestation of vampires and lycanthropy and Zentarum. I would definitely, as it playing off what you've just said, have this idea of like the gates are always closed.
Yes,
it's always raining. It's always dark and like muddy and stuff like that. And I would have it that like before you're allowed into the town, do you know what I mean? There's like you get cut with silver or something like that.
Ooh, that's
do you know
good.
what I mean?
Yeah, you're tested.
So they scar you with silver to see if it scars you more than like a normal blade. So
or
like
if you react in a certain
way,
way,
to a different way to things, to check for lycanthropy or for for vampires and stuff like that. You can't check if you're a Centaurum through that, unfortunately, but like that kind of thing, and make it like every house has got garlic and mystical and like
Everyone's got like a little safe box that
a
has
safe box of things like
Yeah.
steaks and stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
think I would make it that everyone's like always wearing like different, like wearing something that marks like an anti like vampire thing, and it's like silver, like always having a silver dagger on show or something like that, just to make it like a thing and really play off the sort of like, this is a place that's been hurt. Do you know what I mean? Like as a realm, and then make the dwarves the real hardy, geometric aligned doer dwarves. Do you know what I mean?
They
Up
are
in
practical.
The hills. Very practical, not the sort of like rousing, like like laughter and happy, like a sort of like huzzarness that can happen with some dwarves that people portray. I'd have it more like they're making deals. They come down. They don't really like coming into town. They then make this like sell their wares, and there's always some, and they've got to fight werewolves in the hills that it mentions, I think, up there in the Dagger Hills and stuff. So they're always maybe like there's always a dead body on a cart from one of the, or attacked, or someone like hurt and needs us as help. You'd have that at the beginning, like get through, someone help, like let me through, as they're trying to rush in when they've got like a bleeding out dwarf that's like been carrying some of the wares down from the mountains, and make it feel really like oppressive a place just from the natural world around it and its sense of unease. And I think that could make it a really like fun in inverted commas place to start.
Well, realistic, right? Yeah, because it's all about taking risks. And I can't, again, I was just trying to think of the film it's in. It's clearly some sort of vampire film with, oh no, it's a Doctor Who episode, that's what it is, where they like show us your teeth. And you're like trying to look for the fangs or like your eyes or anything like that before you're let in.
100%. And the name Kirkland Morn, the young Kirkland Stone has become Lord Kirkland Morn. Like great names, do you know what I mean? And you just think, and what's their Castle Daggledale? That's it. And you're just like, I'd really like, that would be lightning behind it, and this I'd make the person like very pale, kind of creepily, potentially a vampire. That's how I'd portray them. Very very sad and morose, and like don't want this leadership. Do you know what I mean? Like really just the weight of the world on their shoulders. You know what I mean? And then you could have a storyline where that kind of, either you could play that they falter at the sign of trouble, or they rise to the challenge and becomes like a kind of a storyline for you to follow, which could be interesting.
Well, because quickly on this, because it talks about like how this person, has been found, was found overnight and then now rules, and is idealistic but cautious, quick to listen to advisors but slow to make decisions. So again, that tension point is like, we need a decision soon, and they're getting indecisive or whatever. But then on the other hand is that the people have embraced them, but also they're encouraging them to marry and like continue. So that the pressure of that, and what if you have a Cinderella type ball, and or a Bridgerton type ball where you're trying to find suitors in this horrific sort of like place, and this person's like, I need to think, I need to make a decision before I give a bachelor flower.
But also, you could do. So I was thinking in more like darker terms, in the sense that maybe the person they marry is clearly a vampire,
for sure,
clearly a Zentarum, and about it, but they've fallen in love, and it's like and that could be your political intrigue, that you're kind of like, you find this, they turn out to be a really nice person, and you've helped them on a couple of, and they go, now meet my wife, and it's then the person you fought earlier. Do you know what I mean? Like, like you go up into the hills, you fight a werewolf or something like that, or a vampire, you see them, like their face and something like that, and then suddenly the next time you meet them is like, oh, and now meet my soon-to-be wife, and it turns out to be them. And it's like, do we say something? Do we not say something? That could be a really fun, like little, like, I don't know, just having fun with the players, basically.
No, I agree. Deepening Dale, I don't really have too much on, I'll be honest. It just says really dedicated to respecting the forest and living in it without destroying it. And then there's like a rotting gorge, which again goes back to the Moanda sort of like a presence essentially. And there are other bits and pieces, but I didn't really find anything too
thought
much
the Tower
about
of the Rising Moon was pretty cool in High Moon. A nice little piece of artwork for it, but it didn't. I thought the artwork was quite, it was just quite a cool looking city, very classical, sort of like. But I guess what this one's like for me that I've written down was, this is the elves and humans working together place.
Yes.
And that's kind of, if you fancy a bit of
That's
that,
kind of it. Yeah.
That's kind of what this is. I feel like it's your opportunity to, as you said, the Rotting Gorge is there, which is there just south of Lake Sember, just at the edge of the thing. And that's that. If you want to like get really into your bit of Moanda stuff, it's a good like jumping off point for that.
I guess the one like really noteworthy place, which again is like going small micro level, is the Leaves of Learning, which is just this temple to Ogma that houses one of the most famous libraries in Faerûn, which is again maybe a reason why you'd go. But then it says, unfortunately, the library's index, a singular massive volume bound in gold and encrusted in gems, was recently stolen. I'm like, what? Why is it gem encrusted? It feels like you've bedazzled like your G decibel system. Like it feels wild. But I thought that was again, that's a cool plot hook. It's like, go find this tome that's been sold on the black market somewhere. That was the only one I was like, oh yeah, and also a good name of Leaves of Learning. I thought that was quite good with the book pages. But Featherdale, I thought was one of these ones which is like, there's no authority here. It's like we discuss things, and then whoever wins the argument, they have to carry it out, because there's no way of there's no law enforcement. So in my head, it feels very like chaotic, right? But maybe it's not. Maybe everyone's just like respects each other, and everyone knows. Again, it's that sort of thing. If someone gets out of line, they're going to be cut off. You know what I mean?
It just gave me that old Italian ideas of the family wars in get the name of the city where they've got the horse race and the thing. It begins with S.
Don't look at me. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can see it. I can see the city in my name. But like this whole idea, it's the horse race is actually in Quantum of Solace at the beginning. It's the horse race that happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Siena. That is it. So it reminds me of ancient Siena, where ancient Siena, like the sort of the Enlightenment period, Renaissance era of Siena, where there was all these like high families, and that sort of era of Tuscany where like all these cities were run by the high and rich mighty families, and they were always like, there was all the whole like Machiavellian times where everyone was making little deals with one another to make whoever family was going to be the ruling and most powerful family in the city. I felt like that's what you would play off in this, was all the nobles constantly bettering, one-upping each other and always arguing, and it's through that people are playing off one another, and you could become a part of that interface.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of what I thought about this, and I liked the bridge. I thought the art for the bridge was pretty cool.
The bridge is very cool. This idea of originally a wooden bridge, it's now been remade into a stone replacement. Sorry, and it's between two of the largest settlements. I believe there's obviously Black Feather, and then Feather Falls on the other side of the Dale, and this story of like the deity Cyric killing Lyra, the goddess, god of deception, on the wooden bridge originally over a century ago. And whilst this person did eventually return, it's now a pilgrimage for certainly evil pilgrims to go undetected. Because I think Cyric is some sort of, so I'm going to get it wrong. It's clearly some sort of evil deity of some sort.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, how do people no guards, so that everyone goes undetected? But you're like, it's like. It's like when you go somewhere and you're like, there's the Goths. Like the Goths are there to do like recently, I appreciate this is a reference that you will not necessarily care for, Hamilton, but Yanto's Shrine in Cardiff, which is a character who died in the TV show Torchwood, was so significant that they made a real in-life shrine. And
Oh
actually
wow.
recently it's going to be pulled down, so now people are flocking to it, and it's got pictures,
Oh
like
my
it's got
god.
pictures, it's got letters, it's got all sorts, and it's happened over like 15 years ago when this character died, but it was such an impact that all these people went and made this physical thing. So that's what I feel like with this bridge,
Yeah.
is that you have these pilgrims who go and you're like, well, they don't go undetected. You could tell the evil pilgrims, like, because they're all there, like, so like, oh, this is a bridge, and like, take my portrait, you know, like
I
pointing
love
up and
it.
be like here, and like, oh, am I gonna stab this person? No, you know, it's very much the Leaning Tower of Pisa. You know, you
Yes,
try
I know what you mean. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, going on the theme of Italy, maybe that's the thing. Yeah,
maybe.
no, it's a really cool little like just a little bit of lore that's got a nice idea behind, like not nice, but you know what I mean. Like it gives you some reasoning behind this kind of like
But
famed
it's
bridge, which
it's
is
an
quite fun.
interesting thing where things can happen around this bridge, but it's not connected. Isn't You're not going to go there, and you know you might go there to confront some cultists, right, or
Yeah,
to sabotage something. But it's not. But it's because of this significance, and I think that's
yeah.
the thing. Maybe I'm missing a lot of these places and these sites. They have historical like origins of. I'm like, how do I get the players interested in this? But they're maybe like, wait, what if we go to this place and maybe we can head them off at the pass? You know, they must be
Mm,
traveling through. If they're going to travel through here, they're going to make this pilgrimage. If we're chasing someone,
that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Harrowdale, quickly, oldest Dale.
Yep.
Various things happened in this place. You talked before about like the ghost forts or whatever. There's a one here called Coldfield, which
Yes.
is just again like just a place where a big old fight happened,
Yeah.
an ancient cataclysmic battle. Sorry,
Yeah.
and in winter, these restless spirits of slain soldiers rise up and
Yeah,
fight.
it's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, this one kind of just talks more about Scardale because it's like
I know.
when Scardale like had its problems, everyone came here. The
Mhm.
manor house is okay; it's just a manor house, really. There's a little bit of treasure that's hidden away.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
some logging places. The Temple of the Harvest Moon is kind of cool. It's like a mini version of what's his name's tower. Mordor, the guy in Mordor, the baddie in. Oh my gosh, the baddie in
Sauron.
Sauron. Yeah, it's like
There we go.
Sauron's tower. Exactly. It's just like a tower with a big moon on the top, which lights the
Yes.
world around it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, and it's got a little mini wood, which has got like proper Cloaker Sturges trolls and werewolves
Yeah.
in it. So it has its little offshoot Fenrir wood from the main wood that you can go into.
It has I think an interesting thing of like the loggers there. I think they're protected by some sort of angelic beings, but actually they're just drow who just maintain.
Oh
it.
yes, that bit. Yes,
I quite like that as well.
Yes.
Like they're, oh well, I've been saved. An angel helped me, and it's because they're just like like
another human mucking up again.
Yes, stop logging our trees. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I feel like again, Harrowdale. I think again. I know we're skipping over quite a bit of it, a little bit. But it just feel a bit like I think it had more importance in previous editions. But as you said, with Scardale, that I think Scardale and Shadowdale are the ones that they expect us to start in as starting points for our adventures.
Yes. 100%.
Highdale, we sort of briefly mentioned, it's sort of sandwiched between Cormier and Sembia. Again, this is where I struggle to find interesting things here. There was a place.
This is the one with the gnomes, as you mentioned, hidden in the hidden vale. You've
hidden
got
vale,
the Pegasus Archery Company.
Great, I love that. Yes.
Yep. Copper Gulp's just a great name because it's just a great name.
That's with the kobolds in the mines, and they're like, we're not leaving.
Yes.
So you might have to go and like, because it is a mining place essentially, these copper mines, and then the kobolds just move in because they were abandoned, which made me laugh.
All the gods awoke, manifested in a hidden valley in the dancing place.
I thought this was really cool. Yeah. So the gathering of gods, and it is said that anyone infected with a magical contagion will be cured after sleeping one night here, and they're accompanied by visions of gods who assign a quest to the cured individual. Great. I like that a lot. Like you go on a pilgrimage there, and maybe you help someone from the local town, and you then experience your own vision there. Maybe you were healed of some malady that you have maybe carried, maybe some shaking plague stuff that's been going around. So
Yeah.
I like the dancing place a lot. I could have done with some more, like, I feel like when it's just like a hidden valley, I was like, why is it the dancing place? Is there anything?
That didn't come up at
Yeah.
all. I was expecting why, but I thought people would start dancing in like the back A or something would turn up there and you get caught
Oh
up in the
yes.
dance. But no, the Wyvern Fang is cool because it's like there's lots of wyverns up there, and people go up and climb to catch the eggs and steal the poison from the wyverns and stuff, which I think is quite cool. And I quite like there's reports point to were-wyverns, which I'd never heard of before.
I've never heard of were-wyverns. Yeah.
That was cool, and I think what would be interesting if you were like playing the ranger, the dragon ranger, the wyvern riding ranger, that you could go and collect your egg from there potentially.
Well, that's it. It leads into this idea of like stealing eggs or like poaching as well. Could be a thing, because they talk about like sentient, smart wyverns who are telling other wyverns to be like, "Hey, protect your eggs. Put these boulders up here," which I thought was great. Yeah, I like the idea that it's like, bugger off. Like, you are hired by a poacher to go and like get eggs or whatever, and then you're struggling, and you might wait. Maybe we are the bad guys here. Leave the wyverns alone. I also Mistledale. I thought this was one of the more interesting ones, purely because obviously there's like Fae influence here. But what I thought was really interesting was just a one-off sentence, and it says the villages and hamlets of isolated farms of Mistledale communicate by a set of bells rung in specific melodies to send messages up and down the valley, and especially useful communication method when the mist is thick. Because obviously, usually it'd be through torches or flames or something like that. And I just thought, oh, that's so
really
cool.
Yeah.
Again, I just I could sense it. Like, again, a bit like 101 Dalmatians, where they're all like barking across London to give the information. I thought, wait, you could start to hear something, and you're like, and you often mistake it for like dangerous Fae or signals from highway bandits. But I'm like, what if it's like, no, there's a fog outside, boo, I don't know, like,
and it coming through the fog. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool, and I think it's quite. What I liked about this one is that these people are the most organized.
Yes,
because they've got their grain silos. They're all prepared. They're the most prepared of all of these dales. It feels like, whilst the other ones are building weird towers to light up the night sky, these guys are spending their time building shelters, coming up with how to communicate in the mist. They've also got their really good abbey, which is actually just there to protect and store food for a year for the whole area.
Right.
Yeah. They've got a really good capital, Ashabanford, which is, it's got like a cool council that's like seems to be pretty organized. Council of 6. They've got like, it just felt like this place is this one's got it sorted. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're all in control.
It feels like they've got it in control, but why? Right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's been some Fae pack stuff going on. Maybe there's been some influence. Maybe, you know what? Maybe it's all going well because a Fae has gone, actually, I need a little project. I'm going to run this Misty Dale for a century, and it's coming up to the end of the century, and then you're like, and done. I've got my profits. I take out my investment.
The souls of everyone as they die in the mist. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But other than that, there's not much else with Mistledale. I just like the idea of it being more Fae compared to, say, the Daggerdale. It's almost like the flip end of that.
Yeah, I think the only other thing is there's a little note about the Cult of the Dragon again, but it's really just like the Glen, the dwarves are trading in dragon eggs, and the Cult of the Dragon is interested, and that is it really. And
it's a bit of a, it's like, oh, this, but again, as again the disclaimer that goes throughout of it, maybe there's more stuff in the earlier one, and they just had to streamline it. All right, next one we have is Scarsdale or Scardale, depending on where you're from. So we were talking about this a little bit earlier, in that this is kind of the one that maybe your players are going to go to, or it definitely has one of the more like seeds for adventures in it, because it has this reputation for being the home of would-be conquerors and has had a terrible plague. It just sounds like a horrible place to be honest with you. It's basically, from what I understand, this is where a individual called Lord Lashan or Mesa, she says, question mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, question mark?
Almost there.
Almost
Yeah,
there?
I mean,
Almost
yeah, I
there?
don't know.
Almost
Yeah,
air, almost air. Yeah, I guess there's an air in there. Yeah. This was an individual who is a descendant of Elminster and has attempted to conquer the Dales, essentially.
they
Which
were they were defeated,
they were defeated.
and
Then
then
another person came.
yeah, exactly, seized control, and then after that, with the will declaring her Lashan's heir, which is Skula Darkhope.
Yeah, great
Skula
name.
then also tried to conquest the Dales, but they were slain again. And then finally, the tiefling son, Lord Caru Ormaser,
Right.
is then the tiefling son of the daughter, which is Skula, who was the daughter of Lord Lashan, who is
Or a descendant of
Elminster,
some sort,
who's
or
all a
yes.
descendant Elminster. But that's all held on a piece of paper. They have a relationship to the Zentarim, so there's
Yeah.
like a dodgy, maybe it's not a real piece of paper, but yeah, that's the rulership of this
Yeah,
land.
absolutely. So yeah, so it's a bit like, I think here, like, I'm sure there's more detail elsewhere about like what they actually
Yeah.
did, but it feels like this is the third time's the charm
Yeah.
in that this leader. And I kind of, so what I understand, and this is where I know I'm going to get it completely wrong, and there's going to be people shouting at me. Elemis is still around, right? Like, he's in, I think, Shadowdale, right, or one of the other places, or his mage tower is.
His mage town is someplace seen there, but Elminster's like off gallivanting
Off.
around the
Okay, right. So it's
the
not like you can be like,
universe.
sorry, is this? Can you do like
Yeah.
some sort of blood test, and we can do
I don't
a
think he's
Jeremy
dead.
Kyle-esque that
Yeah,
sort of thing, you know?
exactly. There we go. Jerry.
Jerry. Oh, big
Yeah,
sad.
no, exactly. No, I don't know. I mean, like, I think they've been missing. I think Elminster's like off in, in Spelljammer and planes across the plane
Maybe.
just doing their
Yeah.
thing. So, like, but it does say, yeah, as we come to Shadowdale, I believe it is, where they say like there's his mage's tower. Oh no, I think. Oh, I'm getting confused because there's also a tower next to the Tower of Ashaba,
Oh, there's
which
too many
is
towers.
which I forget, which is no, that isn't Shadowdale. Sorry, you're right, that isn't Shadowdale. They just put the picture in. Yeah, I've scrolled too far. That's my problem. Yes, so yes, you're right. His tower is in Shadowdale, and in Scardale is where the descendants live. And
Yes.
Scardale is another one of these ones on the borders to Sembia, which at one point
Right.
was taken over by Sembia and then relinquished again.
Mhm.
And it has one of the two like major towns that are given their own sort of piece of lore extra, or like a little section extra of these two areas, which is Scardale Town and Shadowdale Town.
Ah, yes. So again, that fantasy name generator, like, what can we call these? I don't know. just repeat the name.
Someone just went like, it's just like someone played word association in like the improv game, like
Can't say
around the
village,
table.
can't say Hamlet, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Dale, Peter Dale. That's not good enough.
No.
Dale. No.
Dale.
Valley Dale. Oh, it's close. Shadowdale.
Cool.
Ooh,
Shadowdale.
I like that
Scardale.
one. Scardale. Oh yes, nice.
Done.
Cool. And focusing on its name, this is a land of the Zentarim. It's a land of gangs. We've got the three gang syndicates in Scardale, which are the Dancers.
Great.
Which are a protection racket. And then you've got the Shaker Gang, which are basically run burglaries and gambling.
Yeah.
And then the Stallions, which are the pirates.
Yeah, they're based out of something called the Sea Stallion. A wrecked galley outside Scar Harbor. Great.
Yeah.
Love that. So they're smugglers, essentially.
Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah.
And I think the map's cool. It looks like a big, like, maw kind of biting, chomping.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it looks like one of those anglerfish, perhaps. With the wall at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% does. Yeah. So it's a cool. It's got a little bit more to it. There's a Faerûn enclave in there, which is kind of, so there's like the Red Wizards are also being. It sounds like this Lord
Karu.
Yeah, Garu. I was going to say the surname, and I went, no, I'm not going to try. Is like trying to like they have connections to Zentarum, but they're also trying to play each other off. It sounds like they're trying to use the Thay wizards to sort of keep the Zentarum in check a bit. So it's a little bit like there's quite a lot of chances for political intrigue here, I'd say.
I'd say, I guess the thing I'm sad about, because okay, the Scardale town, you
Yeah.
have these three criminal factions that clearly have a lot of influence there, but there's no immediate seeds or like what's going on,
No.
and one of the leaders has recently disappeared, and maybe you could have had that with one of the free adventures at the end.
Yeah.
But it's not, and I feel that's kind of a missed opportunity because I'm sure maybe there is more elsewhere. Who
No, I
knows?
don't think there is. And I was gonna say, like, for all it's worth, there isn't a lot there. Like, you get these three factions, which are given a name and kind of what they do, but there's not really enough to like build any like difference between them. You just get
Yeah.
the gang's leader is a halfling named Finchley, and that's all you're meant to go on. That doesn't
Yeah.
tell me enough about someone. Um, you get the Shaker, which is the human boss Eli Sneed,
Great
commands from
name.
his palatial mansion. So I kind of think, oh, is he trying to be like a bit more like highfalutin sort of
Mm,
vibes, and is trying to like be above his station, sort of thing, like is in trying to
yeah.
pretend they're nobility when they're gangers in a
Mhm.
sense. And then the pirates, you're just kind of like, they're pirates, wood
Yeah.
elf, and you haven't got enough. There's not enough like you've
Why
got your
don't they
turf.
like each other? Have
Yeah,
they
they
ever
said there's a
worked
turf war,
together?
but
Yeah,
yeah,
turf war.
what's going on?
Absolutely.
But I could do with a little bit more, just a little bit more like of who they are, what they're about,
Yeah.
what's their wants and desires and stuff like that. What's
E-
getting in
Even
their way?
yeah, even in the noteworthy places, like
Mm,
apart from the enclave that you talked about with the Thay
mm,
sort of influence, they've got like a harbor watch keep. So okay, like yeah, that makes sense
yeah,
because there's a big port here, I guess. There's no, but again, nothing about it. And then the only sort of interesting bit is this four dolphin fountain, which
yeah,
has like this ability to like if you meet there with the other. It says here with Karu meets with the other leaders of the criminal syndicate, which could be quite cool actually. That you spy a meeting between
yeah,
Karu and one of these people. Is that it's you can meet privately without being scried on.
yeah,
So I just thought that was again a very very cool, very political intrigue s. But that's not enough to go on. Like, why are they
no,
meeting? Why is Karu meeting? Like, does he need the support of these three factions in order to keep
yeah,
his title to the whole Dale? So and then there's like a couple of like one-liners, like the spouting fish and the fatted calf among the quietest like inns, whilst the singing siren is infamous for rowdy brawls. And it's like, why? Like, what is there like particular reason why is the singing siren near the docks because that's where all the deckhands and dockers come and blow off steam. It just again I feel like the Scarsdale time is like here's a quick town, a cool map. I think the most interesting thing is the map itself, and then that's
yeah.
kind of
No, I'm
it.
with you. I mean, like to borrow something from my own writing that I did like I had a thing with some different factions and which were all like cartels that were running a town, and so like what I tried to do with that, and I think something that you're saying is like that's missing is like I tried to give like a reason, like a kind of one of them had like a quite horrific experience with another gang leader that like I did it so that like one of the gangs, their leader was very badly killed by another
Mhm.
gang leader in front, like shown, like kind of a bit like Hannibal-esque, shown in front of them, sort of thing of like, this is what will happen to you if you don't fall in line, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then that kind of gave this whole, and I think it's that kind of thing. It's like I don't have to be that extreme, but I think the whole point of like they were sort of, if you should give something that's like, well, one of them's like done so, has like gone against the pact, like maybe something like
Yes.
that, like there's a pact between them, there's an unwritten code that yeah we hold the harbor as the pirate, we hold the thing coming in. Once it's in the town, you want to you want to charge money for protection on the port, that's your call, right? And
Hmm.
then if you want to do gambling, we will stay out of the way of the gambling, we won't run any gambling on our ships, sort of thing. But then when one of the upstarts of the protection racket takes a ship out and starts and kind of corners a ship and takes the booty for themselves,
Yeah.
that's not okay. And now that's what started a little turf war, because like they want the riches on the waters, and that's our domain, is the
Yeah.
waters, and that is the unwritten code, and the code has been broken, and now there's a
Mm.
turf war happening whilst this, and that would have been so much more interesting. And then
Yeah.
the third one could be just caught in the middle, playing off both sides, seeing actually if they'll, and trying to push them to defeat one another. It could be a bit of like,
Yeah.
you two are fighting, well, I'm going to start rumors, and
Yeah.
actually maybe one of the actual thing that started it probably wasn't even that could be the third one playing it on the fourth on the other, and that
Yeah.
could be, or that is the leader keeping them busy. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Whilst so I think just something like that would be just, it doesn't, again, it only needs to be like 2 or 3 paragraphs,
Yeah.
just to be like, here's the seed of what is going on that you can
Yeah.
be a part of or not, and it's just happening around you.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. No, you finish.
I was just going to say, going back to our Waterdeep Dragon heist, one of the things it does in that is it really talks about all the Zentarum and the Xanathar's gang and how guild and how they are so het up against each other.
Yes.
And one of the starting adventures in the alternate book that I always mention, the Lost Tales book, is how you started off is you go to meet either your Zentarum or Xanathar guild connection in the Yawning Portal, and a fist fight breaks out between the two factions.
Right.
And it's such a great inciting incident, gets you into the mood, little bit of combat for your players. It's a great way to just be like, this is what's happening in this town, and you're already involved in the middle of this faction fight, and I think that's just a really great way to get going.
I agree. I have found it here now what Karu's motivation is to getting these people on side is because the Zentarum ties to his mum, all this sort of forgery over this possible, it's a big shadow on him, right? And obviously, if his right to rule is seen to be proven otherwise, then that's it. He has no power. And then you have possibly the Zentarum and Sembia coming in to take back this place. So getting these criminal factions on side, giving them free reign and stuff, that's it's like you got to support me against the Zentarum. It's like almost like the lesser of two evils, right? But I agree. What if the one, it's like, well, what, we want more. They're sort of edging that power. They're trying to, on the pushing the barriers essentially, whilst he's trying to do stuff. Because he's still like an evil person, don't get me wrong. But he's trying to just make sure that he's, if people can see that, hey, I brought peace to this, famously lawless city, maybe they'll accept me. And maybe we can it might be better for everyone if the criminals are on my side, but I let them do what they want. Which actually, again, it could be really interesting. And I do like the idea of an active fight. And but I would like some more, as we said, disagreements, the leader actually is the so the leader of the dancers is the ex-partner of the pirates person, and that's why they split up,
right.
And just anything like that to be like, oh, that's really juicy.
It's just sentences, just little sentences that you can just lead people down a really great path. I totally agree. I think that's right. And you're right, that is a really cool idea, but it doesn't then really give you it just needs a little bit more on that. Why would it be really good? What are they trying to benefit out of it? How are they pushing them? Are they playing Sembia and her off each other, him off, in terms of you really need to actually, Sembia's offering us, if they take the town, the run of this, you know what I mean? Or or it's more like, they're using them as a military force in a sense, like a secondary military, like they're runners, are they hiring them to go and run sort of to do scouting parties into Sembia, checking on military advancements or something like that? Are they keeping an eye on the hinterlands to see if they're mounting an attack's coming or something like that, and having the pirates ready on call in case there's a sea-based attack or something like that?
Absolutely. Like mercs for hire, essentially.
Exactly, kind of thing. And maybe that's running the town's coin down, which means the taxes are going up, which means everyone's getting a bit angry. And as much as you don't want to make this episode 1 of Star Wars where it's all about trade wars, it's like George Lucas said it was called it 20 years too early that we'd all be interested in trade deals, but it's
so true.
But it's also it's that kind of thing that you could, if you want to go for that, let's make this the political intrigue thing, that's the kind of thing you need to get into. Why are money, taxes, those kind of things, and what builds the wider story and brings the people of Scarsdale into it. And actually maybe they want to get rid of them because the taxes are going up and the crime's getting worse, and what are you doing to keep us safe? And then it's and then Sembia's coming, we'd rather be part of Sembia if you're the person in charge, kind of thing.
Right. So you have that on one side, and then you have this sort of shaking plague that had come about almost a century ago, this idea of being fatigued, covered in pus boils, shaking, so that you will have disadvantages on certain checks and stuff like that. Again, maybe it's some sort of I don't know, allegory, metaphor for stuff that's happening now, certainly in the US, about people not taking certain vaccinations for stuff. And I think that's always an interesting one to be like, well, is there no money left for the alchemicalists or the druids or whatever to give
Yeah.
these like helpful like potions and stuff like that, because all the money's gone to that sort of defense, that sort of keeping
Yeah.
criminal factions on side. So as a result, there's been an outbreak of the shaking plague. I actually thought it was quite interesting, and like even it has like, I say rules, but it says like, hey, like if you make skin contact with another person that's infected, then you will also, it spreads. And I just thought that was
Yeah.
interesting. I hadn't seen, we've seen like poisons and we've seen like other sort of magical stuff. I've never seen one that's infectious, quote unquote.
No, I
I just
can't
thought that'd be
remember.
really interesting as a seed, perhaps, that it's
Yeah.
spreading, and like you can go and help and stuff like that. But then what if you get it, and like maybe you have to go get a healer from the other village, and then there's they're actually locked up by one of the dancers or one of the pirates or something like that. Like like again, it's like something else to balance out that it's not just all political stuff and all trade deals, like
No, of course. No, sorry. Yeah, you're right. And there's a lot of threads there that just haven't been. They're not even frayed. Do you know what I mean? They're just very much still part of the ball of twine, and they just need to be pulled on a little bit just to give people, because this is I think the general problem we've had with this is that seems to be the general rule, is that this at the moment to me is just a big ball of twine, and I can't really see the wood for the trees sometimes, because even like having read through it nearly twice fully, I still struggle.
I still don't know the difference between any of them. Yeah.
And like, and then I go through them and go, oh, that is interesting. But none of it stayed with me enough to be like, oh, yeah, that's really cool. Apart from Mythdrannel, which I think is really cool, and is the one that hasn't got anywhere for a mega dungeon. There's not enough dungeon from a mega dungeon there. And so that's my vibe.
You know what I think is missing from Mythdrannel? I know we've got 2 other Dales to go through, but I think what's missing is like having a rumors table or something like that, and having something for all the Dales of like, a rumor that actually it has been found, the legitimate ruler of Scardale has been found, or there's other things in the forest. Like I think my big thing about Cormia and Cormanthor, sorry, and Mythdrannel is that there's not enough weird encounters with creatures that have been changed by the rot and other things that are seeping out of this big forest to all the other dales. That's the thing I would like want to roll, is like, oh, it is like a huge tree ant, but it's full of fungi like growths, and it's been changed and confused in some way, and there's none of that, which I feel like
mysteries and encounter table is literally needed across the board here, and it's just we love a good table. If people have listened to us before, we love a table.
Roll roll of approval.
Definitely like a rating above if there's a good table ability there. And I think that's the thing. And I think you're right. And I totally agree. That is exactly what's missing. And and you can do so much in mystery tables, because that is where you make those little threads that can, like, I remember listening to the people who created Warhammer talking about it, and they said, what we used to love doing was just writing sentences that made no sense to us, right? That were really cool mysteries, and we'll figure it out later. It doesn't matter, because what that does is it builds so much more intrigue for people when you go like, and then you just come across, like, for example, like if they just said the standing stone's there, and the standing stone has got this writing which you can't quite understand. It's in the middle of Cormanthor, but you read like one word and that's it, and then it's like, well, that's already a mystery that I want to go and find out. People want to find out what things are. You just come across a part of the forest, and there's just there's like an empty area that seems to be decimated by rot, and standing in the middle is just one corpse that's decaying, and that's it. And you're just like, what's that about? You know, like, what's that? And that just gives your GM something to go, do you know what I mean? Like, that could be, we talked about Moanda. This could be like the embodiment or entombed body of Moanda, and when you take it back to the like, you try, like, do you take the body? If you touch the body, then you get infected, and then you could do the infection thing, or you could play it that like it then wakes up when you go up to it, and it starts like being like a zombie, and it starts a zombie curse, like all these kind of things, and it's just little moments.
Is it a demon lord? I can't remember her name now, but the demon lord of like oozes and like there's Dublex, and then there's the one of Fungi, which I can't remember.
Yeah, Dublex is the, and then
No, I know.
It's that one.
Oh, Zootamoy, there you go.
Zootamoy, that's it.
Zootamoy, yes. So maybe Zootamoy is actually at play here, and then you can go into like into the deep or whatever it's called, that adventure as well.
Oh, I've typed in Zootamoy and I'm getting Zytomol. It's a type of paracetamol. How do you spell Zootamoy?
Zootamoy is Zuttomony, I think. Zootamoy, I believe.
No, Zuggtm.
Oh, GG, not TT. Damn.
Yeah.
I'll rip up my nerd card because I got that wrong.
Yeah, but Zootamoy is very cool. Lady of Rotten Decay, really awesome.
Yeah, so maybe have Moana being like some sort of, because later on obviously there's a way you can have like these little mini campaign arcs that gives you these beats and that later on there's something to that, and I'm like, yeah, but what if at the end you go, no, that wasn't the final boss, it is actually Zootamoy instead, and that's where you go into the deep or have another adventure doing that. Moving on to Shadowdale.
Yes.
Another farmers one who they mind their own business and share Mugs of Ale with legendary adventurers. So like all the other 9 out of the 10 or 11 Dales are like this. I do like this thing. It says when it comes to claiming land in Shadowdale, there's an old truism: build close enough to see your neighbor's chimney, but far enough away you can't hear your neighbor's quarrel, which I think is just a great. It feels very American, I'll be honest. Like you could be like, you can see them, so you can see where your allies are, but you're like, I don't want to mess in their business. I don't necessarily want to, if they're in trouble, maybe I don't go and help. I look after my own business. Whatever they're up to is fine, Which I thought was an interesting one. This is where the Freedale is. So that adventure later on about you building up Freedale, that's where it would be. I do feel like, I don't know, you've already got Shadowdale Town in here, so I don't know whether you would maybe, I said like earlier that we could either have it as Shadowdale Town or you have it as the Scardale Town, rather than just your own town. Like I feel like Freedale is like, you can make it your own, whatever you want, and I'm like, yeah, but it's nice to have something already. Like again, like in Dragon Heist, you have, I want to say Troll Skull Manor, the pub.
That was your pub that you could take control of.
But that's already established in Waterdeep Dragon House. So you have your factions. I mean, you have factions in this little adventure, but like you have something here to build out from. And like Waterdeep obviously has so much stuff here. Here, why not build into the two either one of two towns that have been already established a little bit? I assume maybe Shadowtown over maybe Scarsdale Scardale Town, because at least there's like more interesting things in Shadowdale Town, because Scarsdale
it's definitely smaller.
Shadowdale so smaller.
Is more like I'd say it's more of a village than a town, but I get what they're saying. But I think so I think I agree though. I think like it's definitely more of a starting place. It's a bit calmer to turn up.
They've got these two temples of Tamora and Lathander, and the Druid's Grove, Old Skull Inn, which I think is quite fun. What I quite like is that each of their sort of their sleeping rooms in the Old Skull Inn have like a name, like Numpkin's Rest, the Onyx. It reminded me so much of like I don't know if you've ever been to Alton Towers, where they always have like the Lego room, or the Smiler room. Exactly. Which so I think you can have fun coming up with names.
I did stay there at Alton Towers and stayed in one of the rooms, and I can't. And we didn't choose; it was just given to us. I can't remember what it was. It was on my 12th birthday, so that's a long time ago. I think it's kind of cool, and it's very much like the Yawning Portal in that there's caverns in the basement that go into the Underdark. So you're like, go for your adventures under a mountain. Wonder what that's like. So Look, there's always.
I will say though, the Old Skull Inn has a really. Again, this is why I'm like, sometimes you're like, you pass over sentences, but I've just reread it now. So the current proprietor is a halfling called Mungo Silvermane, who earns the trust of the regulars, but has a practical head on his shoulders and a knack for puns. He puts his latter talent into practice with weekly pun competitions. The winner of each event gets their tab cleared. Now, let me tell you, Hamilton, I cannot stand puns, but for this, it works.
Well, you should sit on them.
I just
sorry.
Oh, see,
You
that's why
started
you'd
it.
love this. You'd love this,
Yeah,
and
I'd love it. I
and
love a
players would
great
love this
power.
as well. I
Yeah.
cannot stand it, but I love this. Is a cool thing. I'm like instantly, yes, of course you're gonna go there. You got to meet this guy. You know.
No, 100%. You're right. And but there's more of those. That is the biggest moment we've had of like real. It's one of the few moments of this is a human with some quality. Like, as in,
Yes.
like, here's a moment where we can actually give someone some actual intrigue that we're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is interesting. Yeah. And I think, and that's even the only time as well here is where we get the talking about Elminster's tower, and it says like, oh, sometimes at night you see bodies moving around inside, but no one. Then they're gone by the morning. It's enough of a thing, and you've got the threat of
The sign.
the of the Zentarum.
Oh, I was gonna say because I was just say quickly. There's again. You talked about flavor earlier about that, giving little details and stuff. On this tower, this wizard's tower, it says an old sign still stands along a path leading to the door. It reads, "No trespassing. Violators should notify their next of kin. Have a pleasant day," which is like perfect. That's an old man. That's like no parties, no visitors. Very oh, I'm gonna get Bilbo from Lord of the Rings, and the Hobbits. So I think anything like that, little details like that, even if you have a details table, you roll randomly of like, a crow speaks to you in an old witch's voice and goes, "Help me, you must help me," or something like that,
And I think you could, and I think it's with the elements of the thing as well, that also gives you a really good like call to adventure opportunity if you ever want to take this outside the Dales, which could be using Elminster or a proxy of as in like one of Elminster's underlings, or just it could be any of the big adventurers who know where Elminster's tower is and use it as like as a port of safety in the middle of a thing, and you want to just transport your players somewhere. That's a great way to go, which is like in the night when you're in Shadowdale, suddenly a light emits from the thing and it screeches through the noise, and everyone's like, what's going on? And it's going on at the tower, and you all make your way there to see what's happening. And then suddenly emerging from the bright light is like, Marty, it's it's your kids, Marty. We gotta go back where?
Gotta
back
go
to the
quick.
that's your inciting incident, right? So
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you get what I mean, though. Is it like Elminster or someone?
I love the idea of Doc Brown being Elminster, like that. You know what? That's a good. I think I would definitely do that. Any old wizard, it's like,
exactly.
You've got to
Marty,
go.
It's your kids, Marty.
Where we're going, we don't need horses. It's like...
Exactly. And then the horse turns into a Pegasi. That's it. The wings come out and it flies up. Yeah.
I recently did like a big long improv course, right? And they asked us to pitch like things, and I pitched the idea of like in a startup tech company, the tech support was a wizard, like an actual sort of wizard. So that idea of just like, why isn't it working? Fireball, just like, and having that old man sort of like confidence. Don't be ridiculous. I just like, no, we need to go through the documentation. We don't need user feedback. The magic has fixed it.
Chill time. That's a cooling. That'll cool down this heat. Oh shit, it's turned to ice.
Yeah, exactly. You just have that confidence. And I remember because we did a run through of like something else, and we had that sort of thing where you have yourself and someone else. And I was like, okay, I'm a wizard. This person is an airline stewardess. They decide to give themselves, and they're like, I want the customer to have a nice time ago. And I was like, I want to fly the plane. So we had that back and forth because, well, just let me. I think I can do it. I'm pretty confident. So I just like that idea of like, a wizard type character just being like, yeah, it'll be fine. We fail forward, and they're like, oh my god.
And then when the plane, it's like, when everything goes wrong, they're fine. No one else is fine. They're the ones that are fine. Oh, that was interesting. Where am I? Oh, hello, Yeti.
Well, that was a small adventure, and decimated. Like there's other places in Shadowdale. There's like the Castle Crag, the Shalane Freehold, the Spiderhaunt Woods, which also like little like, oh, we could go here as well. But again, I would like to tie it to someone that is like maybe a wizard going like, I need stuff. The Spiderhaunt Wood. Let's go. There's don't worry, they're tiny things. These spiders.
There's always something fun about a party leader who doesn't care for your safety. It makes it really interesting. It is fun because we talked about this when we did the Dragon Delves, and I like we're talking about the Gith who came in, who was very stoic, and just treating them as this like, well, and you said the whole like, oh, you've come off my Rolodex as the most relevant
Yes.
adventurers to help me on this quest. You're coming with me, and you're like, but they come and collect you from wherever you are in the world, and they just drag you, yoink, you're with me, and you're like, what? Wait a minute, hello, okay, oh, we're here now, come on, and they just start walking off. You're like, wait, sorry, I'm here for what? And they're like, to kill a dragon. Huh? That kind of thing.
So, sorry, yes, I forgot to explain, and then they do the explanation.
Exactly.
But I like the idea. Then the wizard goes, "Right, you're here, fantastic. Well, I've got to go. We've got to pick up Wizard Junior from jousting lessons."
Yeah, it's like, what? And then it's just like, what? And you're like, oh, I'll be back in about 4 hours. I'm sure you'll have it sorted.
Don't
by
worry.
then.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, no doubt there's some cheeky book is going to be like counterspell, but I like the idea that person goes, oh no, counterspell. I don't want to stay here either.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that would be great. All right, counterspell. And then you're like, well, you can tell his mother why I missed the recital. Exactly.
Well, oh no, I'm going to get in so much trouble. You were off gallivanting with adventurers. Oh, you don't understand, Yeah.
Exactly. And then the wife pops in and then goes like, boom, hello, you're coming with me. And then you try and you've run out of counterspells. It's too late. And they've gone.
Anyway, that's not what we're talking about.
No, yes. It's not. Sorry. But
see how we've made an NPC that even just a little bit of it, just from this idea of like a fake elements to type character would be fun.
100%.
The final dale we have is Dale, which is 12 villages or tassels connected by this big sort of like I want to say like a road that cuts through this mist-covered grassland crisscrossed with streams flowing north into the river itself. And what I understand is that it's basically synonymous with having excellent swords or like good craftsmanship, which I think is really interesting. It feels very artisan that you'd go specifically to this one place, and maybe we talked about this a little bit earlier, to pick up an item or to get something reforged or something like that, because there's only one person in the whole of the Dalelands that can do it, and they happen to live in the most isolated part because they're just like, I don't, I'm so successful, people will come to me rather than me go to a big town, and I don't want to be bothered. People who come out here are worthy of my time and like service.
Yeah. Something that annoyed me about this thing is it says it's the Tassel Way, and on the map it's called the Tassel Ride, and that really annoyed
I'd
me.
missed that completely. Interesting.
So on the map it's called the Tassel Ride as the line. It looks like that's the only road I can see with tassel in it, and in the book it says along the Tassel Way. So they obviously changed it at some point.
Maybe an update at some point.
Yeah.
This is where I think we mentioned it much earlier when we talked about Arkandale. There is a long rivalry with Arkandale over this. And it stretched back into the murky history, but at its heart of it seems to lie a murdered forester in the Arched Forest, which is like this big haunted forest between the two dales. This feud erupted into violence every generation as hot-headed youths grow weary of cautionary tales told to them by elders and seek out rivals under the cover of the trees, which I think is quite interesting, right? Yeah, they're like trying to, go and like give. Yeah, we'll show them. It feels very that sort of like American high school stealing like the mascot of the local football team, that sort of thing. But actually it could be very, very dangerous because you're going into this really horrible forest with, I think it's got ghosts in one of these other forests that has ghosts in it. I just wish it built on it more, like, I feel like it's that's the only time I'm like, okay, these are two dales that are definitely rivals. What else? Why are these used? Like, they keep doing it generation after generation. Is it a curse, perhaps? That by the time it gets to the end of summer, at least free strapping young adventurers that lose their potential because they go off and die or get mauled by something in the forest, and they blame the other person. As this cycle of violence, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like the classic was it not clan sort of war that happens in like, it's like in ancient Scotland where there used to be the massive rivals, and that then bled into the American West, where you have the rival families and factions fighting against each other, and it feels like the sort of territorial battle that is like just these sort of like bloodline disputes that occur between two different families for generations in this weird misty wood. It's kind of an interesting thing. I kind of I think as you said like earlier about it being a proven place, a place of worthiness, in a sense of like, you've got the Abbey of the Just Hammer where there is a holy avenger that is just held on the mantle, which I think is kind of like there's and like, the fact that it was taken over by Sembia, and then they ran them out,
Mhm.
even like put up a good enough fight to keep them away, and I think that's quite an impressive feat. And I think it's sort of, I think you're right. I think the idea here is I would play everyone as like quietly incredible. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, maybe this is where adventurers go to retire.
That's what I would treat exactly, and it would be
Yeah.
like the person tilling the bar who seems like a really nice person. It turns out that like you see them like put on a jacket one day and it's just got the Harper's mark on it or something like that, and you're like, oh, so wait a minute, is that yours? And they're like, oh yeah, of course.
They gave it to me when I retired.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I gave
like
it to me when I retired. And then something happens, like have an attack of something happen, and then they just pull out like a +4 weapon. They're just like they're like level 12, level 15 sort of adventurers. And you're just like,
yes.
oh, right. So I didn't get that, you know what I mean? And then
That
just
would be
everyone's like that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
I love that idea. That there's something. There's an attack from the forest, or maybe even
Yeah.
like you said, Sembia comes
Yeah.
back, and then all these. You get like 5. I can't remember how many council members there are,
Yeah.
but there we go. We've got like one council member for each of the 12 tassels, and then
Yeah.
there's like a leader, Grand Marsha Roa Rudiland. So you've got 13 people. So you go right. That's each of the classes.
Yeah.
And they all come together to be like this cool Marvel's Endgame, and then you guys are there
100%.
as like the intro characters going like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah,
I think
no,
that's just be really
100%.
funny because they're just all very humble. They're not like showing off. They just all go like, well, we thought we'd settle down and like can't be adventuring forever. I'm nearly 60 or whatever it is
Yeah,
in like elf
exactly.
years or something.
I just have one of them who's
Oh.
like always silent in the corner, is like eating the plate. Do you know what I mean? Like they're like,
Yes,
you know what I
one
mean? They're
word
like completely
monosyllabic responses.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just like, and they look a little bit like they're just like lost in thought, like gone. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly it's just like the thing comes out and it's just like fireball, and then it's just like massive, amazing
Just be like
things.
Eldritch Blast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. 100%.
That's quite
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, exactly. Like it is like it says here. It's got like some sort of garrison as well. Like there's 60 mounted warriors. There's like a large militia of veteran sword fighters. So and they've got, that's quite cool that all these sword fighters have like high quality swords that have been passed down as family heirlooms. So again, it's that sort of thing where if lots of family swords go missing and they turn up in Archendale being sold on whatever market, because it's a big mercantile town. So I think again, I just wish there was like, here's free seeds. Like we've got just something already. I'm already going like, actually, that would be a cool place to go to Tasseldale, because it seems like the weakest, I think, because it's like, well, it's just these little hamlets connected by one thing. But actually, I think that'd be quite fun to go there. And even if it's just like a filler shopping episode, we go, well, we just need to go get the sword, and you just meet all these really incredible NPCs. The Tom Bombadils, right? Essentially, of this whole realm.
That is exactly the vibe, right? It's the Tom Bombadil-ness of it, where it's just like, oh, this is a bumbling person who's making jokes, and suddenly they are like the most powerful person in the whole world, sort of thing. No, 100%. And I think that's, I think that would be great. And then it's like, what a great thing to have as a starting thing, because then like you can go on from there, and then you've always got these people that you can be your like, when you're in trouble, I'm gonna call on the Avengers. Like at least one of them might help us. Like, and they could go.
Oh no, they all turn up. You go with your wizard mate from Shadow Town or whatever, and they goes, oh, I did it. Whoa. Anyway, I must go. So they leave, and then these 13 other people come out, and they just join whatever fight it is.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I mean, if you're then like in Waterdeep, like ages later in your campaign, you can always just be like, we could always call on like one of those folks. And you're like, yeah, we'll give it a go. We'll go back and say, hey, someone's attacking Waterdeep. Will you help us? Yeah, sure. Just give it a minute. just having a cup of tea. Bugger. Oh, it was beef stew for dinner tonight. I was looking forward to that.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. It's the Mummer's play. I'm playing
it's
one of the deities in it, and we've been practicing for weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's bingo night in Sigil, and half of them are there. So I'm sorry, you can only get one of us. Like,
I think that's what I'm missing. I think because obviously, as always with these dales and towns and all that stuff, there was always talks about the inns and taverns and maybe some like other places of note. I would love to see more performing spaces or theatre or art or those ones that, why would you go to these places? Like, there's always going to be manor places where criminals hang out. There's always going to be ruins and various different ghosts, abbeys. Fine. But like, where's the open stage for summer where you do these mummer plays? You
Yeah.
know, I think, I don't know. I think they're just like, what can we put in? And maybe, again, I know I always say this, maybe this is in an earlier edition as well, where they go, actually, the whole town of Freedale is actually just a big performing town, and we just don't know about it. But there you go. That's all 11. Sort of cycled through that, and obviously we talked about Cormanthor and Nithranor, and the rest of the chapter just talks about, like, possible conflicts about, you being heroes, either being like a heroic art where you are versus some other villain, although it doesn't really give you any examples of villains. I would say, which I think is a bit of a shame. Maybe it would be this tiefling person of the Shadow Dale town, or. But then the more interesting one, I do think, is the Moanda like god of rock, right? And because that's you into the forest and stuff like that. So I feel like, it's a bit of a letdown because there's not one, or like they've got, like, they mention every so often, like, here's a leader here, but nothing like, by the way, they're not who they say they are, or there's a big trouble because they've not taken the time to do the difference, like which Dale likes who, and who's on the brink of war, other than like one or two.
Yeah, and you do get your 1d20 encounter, Cormanthor encounter chart, but that's it. And it's not, it's okay, it's fine, and it's like got a few things, but it literally only deals in the encounters in Cormanthor. That's it.
Yeah, why doesn't it do it in any of the Dalelands? Like, you don't need a separate one for every single Dale, but it would have been cool, like, what you find on the road. You could at least do it, like,
South Dales, North Dales. At least you could group Scardale. You could call it like the Sembia Borderlands, like Arkandale, Tasseldale, and Scardale, all as, and Featherdale all as one. Then you could maybe do the borders of the tree borders of, like, Battledale, Harrowdale, the northern one, Daggerdale and Shadowdale and Mistledale, all as like a different one. And then you could do, and that would be enough to be like, bordering the forest, you get these kind of things. Bordering Sembia, you get these kind of things. And that kind of leaves it a little bit like, these ones are going to have more like raiders and seaside ones. And then the other ones are going to have more like things coming out the forest and fighting.
Yeah, no, I agree. So there you go. We've made a much longer stop in the Dales than I think either of us were keen on. But I think we've got through quite enough to be like, okay, we see some of the value in it. And I definitely am excited by some of the stuff we've talked about. But it's that sort of thing where I'm like, I would love to see somewhere else. So Hamilton, where are we going to next? We've done our stuff in the breadlands of the Heartlands.
We have. It's been very temperate where we've been. A couple of bit of rain, bit of mist. Not been like total ultimate sunny, but it's really time to pack your winter gear now because we are heading right to the north, right in the north western corner of the Faerûn into Icewind Dale and the 10 towns.
Excellent.
Yes. Lands made famous by the Dritz novels, is home to Dritz and the champions of the hall, or whatever they're called.
I was going to say heroes of the hall, heroes of the champions, something like that.
Yeah, the companions of the hall. That's it.
We were so close.
Companions of the Hall, and Brainer Battlehammer and Wolfgar and Cattybury.
There you go. Guinevere, of course, you can't forget Guinevere.
Obviously, Guinevere.
One of the big cat daddies. Oh no,
cat daddy's got to have his cat. And so it's interesting though because little spoiler alert that you may know Icewind Dale, you may have read about Icewind Dale.
Yes.
Something afoot. Something is afoot in Icewind Dale, particularly in the Dwarven Mountains. So be ready for that. That's what. So when we get there, we better be cautious. And there's also a shambling body thing.
I saw that image and I went, "I'm sorry, what?"
Yeah, exactly. And then we haven't got that far. I've read that, but you haven't read that bit of the Dritz novels yet. So your Crescendabon and all that stuff, the crystal shards. So lots of intrigue, I think, to be found, and well-known characters. So
I'd even say, like, we covered we did our own little primer of Icewind Dale from the information that was in the Rime of the Frost Maiden. There you go. I was like, I know the name, I see the image in my head. We covered it then a couple of maybe a season or two ago on DM's podcast. So I'd recommend people to go listen to that. I think we did a two-part on that, and then come back, because this is, whilst we agreed, like, maybe we don't need to cover it, it's actually been a tiny bit of an update. It's been 10 years or so since the stuff happened in
stuff is happening
in Rime of the Frostmaiden. So I'm like, how exciting. But yes, it says here, beckon the reckless, the desperate, and those willing to face what waits at the world's furthest edge. So I'm like, Let's go. I'm excited. Yeah.
I'm looking for. It's so having read some of it already because I'm giving it away.
I know.
It's good, and it's a lot better. We're a lot more happier about that than the Dalelands. So
I think
come
we
back
said,
for more.
Yeah, we definitely said it at the beginning of the I think we did a big a comparison of 10 towns versus Dalelands, which is
yeah, exactly. So it's gonna happen.
It shows where our loyalties lie. But yes, thank you everyone so much for watching and for listening. If you're interested, go check out our sister podcasts, the DM's book, wherever you listen to podcasts. Both myself and Halpton's various projects and links are all down in the show notes. We're going to do the teepee-typee, look down there. We'll be back next time for Icewind Dale. And until then, did we have an ending? I don't remember.
Oh, we'll see you. Oh, no. We'll see you on the... Was it flip side of the map? No, that was something we didn't say. We'll just see you... No, we'll just see you next time in Icewind Dale. I think that's what we said.
I think that's what it was. All right. Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Next time in Icewind Dale.
Panic. Yeah.
Panic, bye.